Good morning. After a Bangalore sojourn, we find ourselves back in our hometown.
Our
And in
second
what
home.
is. No, now this is our second home, in home, which is Starbucks.
Yep. And they're still.
Americano with animesh, coffee with a K with Cotilla, Copo. Fuck, I still can't pronounce
You
your
still
second
can't
name.
say it. Like 27 episodes later, you still cannot say my surname.
No,
Wow.
man, I can't. It's tongue twister. Yeah, this early in the morning.
Yeah, but it's good to start off the day with something like this.
I guess so. I mean, who doesn't like stoner riffs in the morning?
Actually, this episode, I think we should title "Wake and Bake."
Wake and bake. Wake and bake. Yes, of course, we are talking about stoner. But before we get into the band that we are talking to, you are going to be talking to Marijannah, which is a Singapore-based. Coffee is getting made in the background, which is a Singapore-based stoner metal band, stoner doom.
Yeah, stoner.
However you want to categorize that. They had a pretty good album release, I think, last year or a couple of years back.
Last year.
Yeah. In 2018, and now they're out with a new single, which is kind of the reason we were talking to them. I mean, the single just happened to come out. We were actually wanted to talk to them even before that.
Yeah.
Because they had a pretty good release out. And it's weird that the band obviously is known to a lot more people because of its connections with Singapore's Wormrot.
Yeah, and they're
right?
probably the one of the best known bands from Singapore around the world.
I think they are the only. Yeah, it's them and there's Rudra.
Yeah,
right. That's
and Impiety.
But Impiety is like still underground. It's still cavalt. Yeah. Wormrot is very mainstream now.
Yeah, true.
Right. So before we get into the interview, here's what really perplexes me, and this is something that you and I had a chat about much earlier. It's about how people who play in a hardcore band always seem to have an affinity for non-short music. I mean, you get all your anger vented out in under 30 seconds or less through all your hardcore songs or through all your grindcore songs, and then you generally have an inkling to either perform or keep listening to songs in which you keep repeating the same drone riff 526,000 times to make it 10 minutes long or 11 minutes long. But Marijannah doesn't really do a lot of that. Right? I mean, their song structures are...
Like, here's a non-musician from a non-musician's perspective. Like, I'm just thinking, if I was like playing in a death metal band and all my riffs and everything were like death metal, I don't want to be listening to death metal all the time, right? Because it would kind of
begs to differ. He says double blast beats all day, every day, 24/7. Remember, we told him that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be caught dead listening to Enigma.
But he listens to Nickelback.
There you go.
We know his guilty pleasure.
Yeah, we know his guilty pleasure.
But I mean, I would think that, and at least from the the interviews I've read of bands and stuff like that, there are times like, we talked to Andy from Lord not too long ago, and he talked about, the mixtape and how important that was. And, just like, imagine when you're touring constantly, the grind, you want to and one way is music is an escape, right? So you want to listen to stuff which is like about dragons and, I don't know, fantasy, some weird shit. Lord of the Rings. Just get away from whatever your reality and everything is, right?
You've been listening to a lot of power metal.
No, I know Hammerfall have a new album out and I got the promo for it, but I don't know, man.
It's got a brilliant song which is all about Sweden, so yeah.
Okay. Now I'm only
check it out.
Okay, I'll give it a try just
check
because
it out, and then you don't have to eat cheese or eat dairy for a gazillion years. It's dripping with it. Anyways, coming back to the point, let's just dive right into that interview, right?
Yeah, it was a great chat with Nicholas, and I don't think I need to say anything more.
All right, guys, here's Peter's chat with Marijannah's Nicholas.
I'd like to welcome on to Horns Up Nicholas Wong all the way from Singapore. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey man, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's great to speak to you because while Animesh and I were discussing about having you on the show, we realized that both of us have been listening to Marijannah. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, I don't think I know the correct pronunciation also, and I think that is as close as it gets.
All right. So, one of the first things that struck me about the band, and I still remember reading about it. Of course, a lot of press was like, "Oh yeah, the side project of Rasid from Wormrod." But the next thing that struck me was like, "Wait, there's a stoner metal, a stoner rock band from Singapore." So, like, before we get into the band, just tell me, like, how did you get into like stoner music?
Uh, to be honest, I've always been more of a hardcore kid
Okay.
for a long time. So I played in like hardcore bands and post-hardcore bands for a long time. I think for at least half of us, we're pretty new into stoner metal and boom metal. I just like personally, I like just trying out different styles of music. And weirdly, like the process is a little bit weird because I think half of us, myself and our guitar player Skinny, I think we really fell in love with stoner metal and doom metal after the band was formed.
Oh wow. Okay. And
Rashid and our bass player Azri recommended us a lot of things. They know more about stoner and doom.
so
Uh,
what were the bands that they made ensured that you checked out?
I mean, we all already know like the big names like Black Sabbath and Sleep, like
Yeah.
bands like that. Personally, I like listening to many different subgenres of metal and rock, and punk or any type of underground music. But Rashid got us into this band called Uncle Acid and the Dead Beats from the
Okay.
UK. Yeah, and that I think to us was a game changer.
All right. And how would you like kind of if you've got to like describe, because one this is kind of leading into my question where I was reading a quote when your previous band, the Caulfield Cult, kind of broke up, and you said, I'm looking at doing something new. So, what was forming Marijana one of like the direct impacts of your last band breaking up?
You know what? Caulfield Cult. When we were still going, we toured a lot, and I think towards the end of it, um, I was getting pretty frustrated because we were making no money at all. And I mean, it's not about making money, but just the fact that we had
Yeah.
to juggle odd jobs and try to pay our bills and all that, and it really wasn't going anywhere. So I was pretty disillusioned with playing music when we broke up, and I told myself I'm not gonna play music like for real or full time or attempt to play music full time anymore. I mean, by no means is Marijannah a full time band, but you can't really escape. I mean, if you love playing music, you can't really escape from it for a long time. So um, I just wanted to play something different and something new. And my partner is very into stoner metal and doom metal, and she loves sleep and dance like that. So I got influenced by her a little bit, and I decided to give it a go. I've always loved metal, but I never got about playing metal music because of the technicality.
All right.
Yeah, we're all like hardcore kids and punk kids, and we can't play more than like power chords or anything technical like that. So like when I got into like stoner metal and doom metal, I figured like I can probably play that, which I mean, obviously, it was way more of a challenge than I thought it was back then. So I used to play guitar and sing for the Caulfield Cult. So I decided I was sick of guitar already. So um, I started playing the drums. I played drums once for a gig in secondary school. Like
Oh wow.
yeah,
It's been a
I,
while.
I had to teach myself how to play drums because all the drummers in the school graduated. So that was at least like over 10 years ago, I think, and I just thought I should pick it up again just because I was so bored of how things were. So we just kind of went from there.
Right. And you said you wanted to pick up. So how did the rest of the members kind of come together? Because, like you said, all of you all play with such different bands. I mean, like when I'm just looking, you've got I'm not sure what he plays, but Mohammed plays in Abolition AD, and
Yeah,
then you've got Rashid in Wormrot, which, like, if you think about it, is like sonically the opposite end.
I don't know. It's weird because like those two guys listen to way more music outside of the bands that they were playing in at that time, or rather are still playing in now. Um, but I don't specifically only listen to music that the kind of music Caulfield Cult plays, and Rashid listens to way more than grindcore, and I think we were all just creative individuals that wanted to tap on our other side that we haven't explored before, and so our bass player Azri, who is in Abolition AD, he I knew him from the hardcore scene. We were all hardcore kids back then. So Abolition is kind of like it's one of those hardcore bands that is kind of metal as well. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Yeah, like he'll hate me for saying it, but they kind of sound like the fast parts sound like nails. So
Yeah.
he's kind of metal, and I know he's into like doom and stuff. So he was the first person I called to form this band, and he was down. And our guitar player Skinny used to play with me in the Caulfield Cult, and we hang out all the time. So I got him to join again. He quit the Caulfield Cult in 2014 because we were touring too much, and he sold all his gear. And
Wow.
when I invited him to join this band, he had to buy like everything again from scratch, like from his guitar to his amp to all his pedals and everything. Yeah, it was supposed to be we were supposed to be a three piece, and it was never supposed to be an overly serious band, and it wasn't something that we wanted uh, to allow to take up much time or energy from us because we were all kind of jaded at that point, myself especially, and Azri was about to get married, so we weren't we were just planning to you know just go to the studio and jam a little bit and see if we can come up with any riffs or anything. And um, I'm a promoter and I put on shows every now and then as well for touring bands. So I put on a show for a band from Malaysia, and Rashid from Wormrot was a friend of theirs. So he came to hang out and grab a few beers when the band came to Singapore. So
Right.
Skinny and I were there, and we just talked about how we wanted to form a stoner metal band, and he just said he wanted to join because he always wanted to play music like that. I think, and just never found the people who want to do it.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That 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 sounds like a great coincidence. He just happens to come to the show, and yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't know Rashid at the point. So like the next day I texted our bass player. I just said like, dude, I think the guy from Wormrod wants to join our band. And he kind of pushed us songwriting wise. Like I wrote a couple of songs when we started. We jammed those a little bit, and Rashid wrote a bunch of riffs, and they all sounded way better than the ones that I wrote. So we scrapped most of those songs that I wrote, and maybe we salvaged like two or three riffs that ended up in our debut album. But uh, yeah, Rashid joining the band um, kind of pushed us and kind of made us enjoy playing live music again and writing music again. I think it was just four different creative individuals getting together. You know, sometimes you just need a change of pace to get yourself interested again.
True. And I still remember. I think it was like just over like 2 years ago, where like I think the first single you guys put out was Snake Charmer, and I instantly remember listening to it and going like, "Whoa, this is." You could tell that, like, of course, while y'all were a new band, but everyone has kind of like been through the band process and stuff like that. So like, it wasn't like, back in the days how bands would put out like a demo and stuff like that. This was like really good stuff, and
Yeah,
especially now that you're telling me your background, so you guys had like a way different reference point with all your other bands when you were recording.
yeah, and also we took a really long time to put those songs out, the songs from that record, um, which is not something that I'm particularly used to. By playing in a punk,
Okay.
playing the punk band, you're used to writing a song and going to the studio 2 weeks after that, and then that song will come out a month after that. But I think between the point of recording and the release of the first album, I think it was about a year.
Okay. And
Yeah,
and was that something like you consciously did, or it just circumstances and just situation around you?
kind of both, because we all work full-time jobs as well, so we don't go into the studio as much as we like, but also that gave us an opportunity to really properly review the tracks, and something that you thought sounded amazing 2 weeks ago, it might not sound the same now. You might have new ideas, and you it and like, oh, this part sucks, we have to do it again.
Yeah. So like you guys like played really hard quality control with the riffs and the entire sound, I guess.
Kind of, but I'm also a little bit ashamed to say that because the quality isn't the best. So,
No, no, I'll come to that in just a couple of questions. But like your since you talked about it, your album Till Marijannah, it made waves all around the world. I mean, you had like people in the States, everyone kind of writing about it. Time Out in Singapore named it as one of the best local albums of 2018. I mean, like Animesh and me here in India, Bombay, were sitting out and rocking out to it. So how does it feel like looking back at the album like a year later or so?
well, it's definitely something that I'm very proud of. The amount of the good feedback and the amount of press that we've gotten is something that I'm not very used to. So I learned that the secret formula is to have someone from Wormrod in your band, and the press will automatically pick it up. So like sometimes I think like recently, I think we were on Metal Sucks and Metal Injection, and when they publish an article about Marijannah, they would like put a bracket Wormrod like beside it, and then
Yeah,
like
yeah.
some of my friends will like send it to me and like how do you feel about this? I'm like, it's awesome, dude. Like I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to. It will be stupid to pretend that we don't have a member of Wormrod in the band.
No, and that's the thing. Like, it's kind of picked up pace a lot, especially since you talked about it, and I want to bring it in. Um, you just put out a new single, Bloodsucker, and one of the things, since you talked about the sound, was from the first listen itself, I could sense like a warmer sound, if I could describe it as that. And of course, like the song has a complete like different inspiration in a way, which is like kind of horror driven. Was this like a conscious decision you all had in the shift in lyrical as well as just sound wise?
Lyrically, all our songs are influenced by movies in general, mostly horror movies. So there wasn't much of a change there. But production wise, like this isn't the first time that we've gotten that feedback. Like I honestly didn't know that there was going to be a change in production until I heard the final masters.
Okay.
Because funnily enough, I mean I can hear the vast difference now, but funnily enough, like everybody that worked on the album, I mean that worked on the single Bloodsucker is exactly the same people that worked on the first record. The engineer is the same, the studio is the same, the guitars that we play on are the same, the mastering agent is the same. But I think because when our engineer mixes our track, we sit down beside him and we do it together. So I think just from spending a year listening to the first record, we kind of know what we wanted to change and what we wanted to improve. So we had a clearer perspective of how we want to sound like coming in to the studio for this single.
So, since we've spoken about the single, I think it's time we play it. So, yeah, for those of you who are wondering what we're talking about and this shift in sound and stuff like that, if this is your first time listening to Marijannah, then I think this is a great introduction. Here's Marijannah's latest single, Bloodsucker. and we just heard Bloodsucker, the latest single from Marijannah, all the way from Singapore. And I've got Nicholas still with me. You know what's cool about this thing, also, Nicholas, I found was that a brewery in Hong Kong, Moonzen, has created a beer called Bloodsucker Raspberry White Wine. And it's quite strong for somebody who likes beer, 12%. Huh? So, what does it feel like to have like a beer kind of coinciding with the release of your single and stuff like that?
That's amazing. It's definitely one of the milestones in my life. We all bond over like craft beers pretty often.
Okay.
We get together and be pretentious snobs and drink craft beer and compare the hops and stuff. so it's definitely a milestone for us. We were fortunate enough to have someone who's a head brewer who was a big fan of the band. He's a personal friend of ours now, who just liked us and wanted to make a beer for us.
Right. And I'm just curious, is this like something that's going to be available at the festival that they released it as? Is it going to be like bottled? So will you be like in lines with like Iron Maiden, who also have the Trooper beer?
That was actually the first craft beer I've ever had in my life. It's the Iron Maiden, the Trooper beer. I didn't even know it was craft beer like until much later. I just wanted to drink it because it was the Iron Maiden beer, and I didn't know what craft beer was at the time. But I highly doubt we will reach that level. It's going to be available at a craft beer festival called the Art of Craft Festival in Hong Kong on the 31st of August. I'm not sure when this will come out. I think that date would have probably passed by then. It was supposed to premiere in Singapore last weekend because we played a festival last Sunday and it was supposed to be available at bars around that weekend, but sadly due to the current protests in Hong Kong and the situation there now, it wasn't able to leave the port in time because the protests spread to the airport, so we had to postpone it. But for everyone in Singapore who's listening, it'll be here soon.
All right. That's great to hear, man. Yeah, and you touched upon it, so I just want to ask you just to shift gears a little and put on your promoter hat. So you also run ACPHC, which I looked up, and it's All Cool People Hate Christ.
Where do you see that?
On Facebook. I have no idea.
Did I post that?
I think so. I hope so.
Okay,
it's you.
That's not accurate. It doesn't actually stand for anything. It's an inside joke that I have with my friends. But every time people ask me what it stands for, I always say something stupid. But it's not.
All right. But
the cops are listening in Singapore. That's not what it stands for.
but one of the things is like living in India and being a metalhead in India, you constantly see like we keep getting information about like all these bands coming in, like Metallica, Judas Priest, and all the bands that show up to Singapore. And then when I was looking up the gigs that you've done, like earlier this year you got Cult Leader down. I'm very curious to know, what is it about Singapore that kind of attracts these bands there? Or what is it about like the Singapore metal scene that the same bands are not coming down to India and playing?
I mean, I can't speak for the metal scene in India, but Southeast Asia in I would say the last decade, or at least the last 6 to 7 years, has become a hub for touring bands. We have loads of bands come through now, like bands who are going to Japan or Australia, some of the bigger spots in Asia. They would consider stopping by Southeast Asia just because there's a big metal scene here in Singapore and Indonesia, especially Malaysia, Philippines.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about like the South Asian scene I've noticed also is that like for example, we were watching Immolation this past weekend, and we were at their show in Bangalore. And Immolation then heads over to, I think they headed to Kuala Lumpur, went to Korea. They're playing Singapore after that, Bangkok, and
Yeah,
that's a cool.
they're here this weekend, I think.
But I'm saying, what do you think? I mean, like as a promoter, what does your instinct tell you as to why did you take up promoting shows in Singapore?
Personally, I started booking shows because my previous band, the Caulfield Cult, we toured pretty often. We've been to we've been around Asia a few times, Japan. We toured Europe and North America a few times. And you know, we're not a money making band. We are a fairly unknown DIY band, and I just always felt very grateful when we get to play like a basement or a squat or an underground venue or a bar, and the fact that these promoters and these people in these communities would take a chance on us, and you might lose money by doing these shows, and they did not need to put us on. They can just say, like, sorry, I can't help you, and carry on with their lives. But I just felt very touched and thankful that there were promoters out there to put my band on. So when we ended, when Caulfield Cult broke up, I just told myself that I want to kind of repay the favor, to put on bands who want to come here. I mean, going back to your questions on why I think bands come here all the time, I think most people that play in bands, they naturally have like a sort of like a wanderlust. They want to go to different places and meet different people of different cultures who are into the same things that they are. In this case, it's metal and punk and hardcore. So I think when there is the slightest bit of demand, I would think most bands would find it hard to say no.
Yeah, I can totally see. I mean, like trying to put myself in like somebody from the States or America. Even if I play for a smaller band, somebody calls me from Singapore, I'll definitely hop onto that flight.
Yeah, if you're not going to lose much money and it makes sense, I think naturally, everybody who plays in bands like these, we want to travel and play our music to people all around the world.
One more thing, just to kind of like build on the question about the scene, from our perspective of when we're looking at Singapore, where you have a very controlled environment per se. How does a metal scene or like a hardcore or punk scene kind of thrive? Or even because like if you think about it, all these bands coming in, there are a lot. It's like, I think probably from my estimate, a couple of shows, metal shows every month, right? And when you think about it, Singapore is a small place. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 1/5 or 1/6 the population of Mumbai. So yes, to have an ecosystem like that kind of supporting it there, how does a metal scene kind of stay active or thrive?
I mean, naturally, metalheads and hardcore kids are super dedicated people, and to them, it's a way of life. Like one reason why I wouldn't call myself a metalhead or a hardcore kid, in most cases, is because I feel ashamed too, because I don't think I am as dedicated as the kids who go to shows every single weekend, and to them, it's their life and their passion, and we are lucky that we have a scene like that here that keep shows alive.
For us, I'm really glad to have an example like that, because whenever we think about, we don't have, or there's not enough numbers and stuff like that here in, like, say, Bombay, for example, when I look at a place like Singapore, I'm like, wow, that's a great example to kind of build towards or aspire towards.
And this happened like pretty sudden. Like I remember back in 2006, 2007, we had Sick of It All from New York play Singapore. And that was like a huge deal. That was like one of the first. I mean, we've had like Rollins Band and Fugazi in the 90s, but it's a very rare occasion. And I remember when Sick of It All came, like I wasn't there at the time because I was I was still in like a dweeb in school. But from the photos and videos I saw and the stories I heard, like it was a huge deal, and I think that opened the doors to many hardcore and metal shows, and uh, it showed the kids of Singapore that bands want to play here and we can get bands to play here, and it showed the bands from the States and Europe that hey, there's a place to play here if you want to.
Again, just to shift gears back towards the band. I mean, I talked earlier. You've got another project I see, and I heard the track "Blood Pact." You've got
Yeah.
Rashid busy with Wormrot, and you've got Azuri with Abolition AD.
Yeah.
What does it take to kind of, because it's very easy to kind of have with all your bands and the multiple bands you'll play with, to have Marijannah as like a side project or stuff like that. So what kind of effort or do you take to kind of prioritize it as one of your bands?
I wouldn't call Marijannah a side project. I wouldn't call Bloodpack a side project as well. I don't think I have side projects. They all require the same amount of time and effort. It just we kind of rotate because like
Okay.
Wormrod is doing some touring next year. So when they're away, I'll be busy with Bloodpack, and when they're back and we have the opportunities and the shows presented to us, we'll be busy with Marijannah and vice versa. I mean,
And I think,
we're not a full-time touring band. We don't do this for a living, so we can kind of choose our schedules and just rotate it around when we need to.
and just from an outsider's perspective, that seems like a great thing because you don't kind of like plateau or kind of stagnate with one band. You have like different sounds and a different kind of environment, different kind of band members. So it just keeps those juices going, I guess, right?
Yeah, I know to a lot of people it seems kind of exhausting, but I really enjoy just writing different styles of music uh, at the same time and working with different people. So I don't know. I mean I can take 2 days off, 2 nights from a week to go into the studio with each band. I think that's a reasonable requirement.
And just to kind of like we've got a taste of new music from you. So when can we expect like, if not a full length album, maybe an EP from you?
Oh, Marijannah actually has a full album recorded already. Like
Oh wow.
yeah, we recorded everything the same time. We did Bloodsucker. Everything is mastered already. I think we'll be announcing the new album and when it will be out. By the end of September, maybe mid-September, something like that.
All right. Okay. So wow. Yeah. But those clickbait websites, you heard it first on Horns Up. Marijannah have a new album coming out probably before the end of the year. So I'm really glad to hear that, man.
Yeah, it will be out. I have to speak to the label again, but I think it's either the last week of November or the first week of December. I can't remember.
Awesome. That it's great. Really glad to hear that. And I'm assuming when you got the new album coming out, you also probably going to be touring around that. Do you have any shows or anything else planned around that?
Yeah, we have a regional run towards the end of the year around Southeast Asia planned, and we're also planning a short, I think a half a week long run at the start of next year. We definitely want to do a little bit more next year when the album comes out, but like I said before, we're all juggling full-time jobs, and it is, I mean, as much as we love playing music and touring, it's no longer a priority for us. So we're trying our best to fit it into our everyday lives, you know.
Awesome. And if in case there are any Indian promoters listening, I think they should take notice of you all.
Yeah, I would love to go there. Warmrod is playing India in January, I think.
Yeah, they're playing a couple of shows next year.
Will they be near you?
No, unfortunately, on the other end of the coast.
Oh,
But
no.
yeah,
Should get someone to put them on.
definitely, I'm gonna try doing that. But man, it's been great talking to you, Nicholas, and I'm really glad we had this conversation.
Nice.
Anything you want to sign off with for our listeners? How can they reach you personally, the band?
I have nothing much to say. Just keep your eyes peeled. We'll have a new album announcement soon, and yeah, support your local scene, I guess.
All right. And how can people like reach out to you, reach out to the band?
Our contact email is all on our Facebook and Bandcamp and Instagram and everything. You won't miss it. We're Marijannah on Facebook and Marijannah Band on Instagram.
All right. And what about you? Any Indian bands looking at playing Singapore?
No, I think your co-host, his band played Singapore, right?
Yeah. Animesh. He played with Riot Peddlers.
Yeah, I was listening to some of your previous episodes, and I think I was listening to the one with Rudra, and he mentioned that he played Singapore recently, I think.
Yeah. They played actually just last year. They played.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I wish I knew.
But
I know another band from India, Death by Fungi.
oh yeah. They're friends of ours.
Yeah. Other than that, you'd have to recommend me more Indian bands.
Definitely. All right. So thank you very much, Nicholas, for your time. It's been a pleasure. Really looking forward to that new album from yours. And for all the listeners, stay tuned. There's a lot more coming up from them.
Thank you.
All right, so big news coming out of that. We can expect the new album by the end of the year.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited, especially like when you hear Bloodsucker, and that's one thing I said is that it has a far more warmer sound, and it was surprising. I mean, Nicholas said that he heard this kind of feedback, but it's exactly the same equipment, same people, same mix mastering engineer. I just think like a year later they've got like far better at their music and stuff like that.
Or
But-
maybe it's just the quality of the hidden substances that they can't really
Their
consume in Singapore but are consuming
their
anyways.
inspiration.
Their inspiration. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that. I love that artwork, man. I love that logo unit which they've done. It's really a whole package.
No, and it goes along, right? I mean, like, I don't know how many doom metal bands are inspired by horror, because it's all about like worship.
There's so many. I mean,
So
I don't know
much.
if you would. I don't know. Like if you mention doom, that's a different thing. How many stoner bands are influenced by horror?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
thing.
but there's a very like fine line or a gray
True.
area between the two.
true,
right?
true. But
So
but
yeah.
it'll be a good listen, and I'm glad they're releasing it just before. Hopefully, they do it in November, so it kind of makes people's best of lists, because that plays a huge role. The moment you go into like I think like second week or third week of November, it just kind of gets lost.
That's
So,
too early to do a end of the year.
Yeah,
It's not yet the end of the year.
I know.
Oh well, morons. Okay. I have to sneak this in. We're recording this on August 30th, and this is when the episode will come out, and it is the day like the
I knew you were
and
gonna you couldn't resist
seas.
doing it.
Yeah,
huh?
I couldn't resist doing it. The seas have parted and everything for a brand new Which Format album.
What?
Yeah, there's a brand new Which Format album.
What do you-
Completely zigged when you were expecting me to zag, no?
Yeah, because
Yeah, right?
the amount of airtime we've spent on that one band, and by the way, I haven't heard the album as yet. Just saying, neither Which Format nor the one that shall not be named as yet.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll get into that. So here's what I propose, and this is live proposition because you have no idea of me doing this right now to you. Let's try and meet on say Monday or Tuesday, and next week we'll do 2 episodes.
Okay.
One will be a music on our mind, in which we try and talk about the music that we have been here listening to. So, do you think you'll be able to digest 1 hour 27 minutes of material by then?
I think so. That'll be a lot easier than like watching a lot of these TV series and stuff like that.
Yeah. big long weekend coming up.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Makes sense.
Yeah, let's do that. Next
right.
week, 2 episodes. That's something to look out for. Till then, he's at...
I'm at Trend Crusher.
I'm at Asmani. You can reach out to us at Horns Up Pod.
All right, until next time, horns up.